Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here, explaining the two-game NBA main slate on Monday. Before I get in the video, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NBA and NFL slates on Draftkings, and I also make videos for NBA Top Shot. If you're unable to watch these videos, I also upload on Apple Podcasts. Link down below is called the DKDFS Show. If you could leave a 5-star rating and review, that'd be greatly appreciated. If you're interested in signing for premium content, I offer that on Patreon.com. Also linked down below. I offer an NBA package as well as an esports package. Esports, we got Call of Duty and CSGO. CSGO, there's always, most of the time the slates are in the morning, so it's nice to have, a sweat in the morning and obviously, a sweat with NBA later in the night if you're a degenerate like myself. So, if you guys are interested, you can check that out. And finally, I want to thank Prize Picks for sponsoring this episode. If this is your first time watching my videos or you're just not familiar with Prize Picks, there's a couple different ways you can play. So, the original way is they will post fantasy scores, and you can either take over or under on fantasy points. So, like, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 58 fantasy points, do it the under, do it the over. That is basically the idea. They also have single stat, where you can take, like, over-under on points, over-under on assist, over-under on rebounds, over-under on three-pointers made. So, yeah, there's a couple different ways you can play. They have every single sport you can think of, esports as well. Again, NFL, PGA, everything. So, if you guys want to try it out, you can sign up, use the code DKDFS. DKDFS, all one word, link down below. You'll get a 100% match up to $100. Basically, if you put $100 in, you get a free $100 to play with. And so going over some of the prize picks I like today, honestly, I am really focusing on this first game. I think you can go over on most of these guys. Like, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 58. I think he goes over. Drew Holiday at 39. I think that goes over. Let's see, you got KD at 57, Kyrie at 49. I still think those are I still think they can honestly both hit over. Again, this is a game that should be played at a very fast pace. Let's see. What else do they got? Blake Griffin had a huge game last game. He's only at 24. Again, if he plays 35 minutes again, I think you want to lean the over. But will we get 35 minutes again from Blake? I'm not 100% convinced about that. They even have some of the more scrubby players like Pat Connaughton's on here, Landry Shamet. Yeah, so again, I kind of like an over on Giannis for sure, over on Drew. If Blake plays 35 minutes again, I think you can take the over there. The second game, let's take a look at these. They all seem pretty fair. I think Monte Moore's the over, and just because right now he is playing a ton of minutes on the bench and really leading that second unit, also closing a lot of games, and he has the ball in his hands, like I said, pretty high floor with the assist. So I think that second game, probably my favorite to take on the over is definitely Monte Morris. But all right, so let's talk, or I guess before we talk about this two-game slate, we can look back at my lineup here from Sunday's slate. So Sunday, got in the cash in the lower dollar stuff. The one letdown for myself was Tyrese Maxey, who we'll get to in a sec. But yeah, I can get out of the way so you guys can see. So, Maxey played. Do I regret it? Not really. He, if you watch that game, the last few games, he really runs the second unit. He's had a terrible shooting game. He shot 2 of 8. Again, I watched that. He had 2 or 3 shots lip out. I'm like, oh man! And then he got to the free throw line and botched both free throws. I'm like, are you kidding me? So a lot of bad variance, right? A really bad shooting game. He missed both his free throws. Only played 14 minutes too, as opposed to the 20-ish in the previous game. So do I regret the play? No, I think he got to get hit with a little bit of bad variance. I think if he would have made a couple more of those shots, he would have stayed on the court for a little bit longer too. So. No real regrets there. Just one of those. Again, he just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Now, the rest of my lineup here. So the other 2 guys used in the early game, Solomon Hill. I did not feel good about that at all. Luckily, he got me 14. I was just hoping for him to get me 10 to 15 fantasy points. He got me 14. I'll take that. The Joel Embiid play. He was 11% in this one. He was even lower owned in some of the higher dollar tournaments. It shocked me. It shocked me. And the reason is because I went over this a little bit in the YouTube live stream, but also on Patreon. It was like I was looking everywhere, like scanning Twitter. It's like I don't see anything of an Embiid minutes limit. I was seeing too, like he looks full on, like full go in warm-ups, like everything normal. He doesn't look limited at all. And yeah, with all that information and with no limit, I was like, hey, I think Joel Embiid's a really good play. And I was shocked at how low the ownership was. 10% Embiid at 9.4K. Now, I get why people faded him, right? They're scared of him aggravating the injury like Anthony Davis. But again, you got to try to avoid groupthink sometimes because like everyone's thinking that, and that's kind of what came to my mind. It's like, all right, everyone's gonna be too scared to fade Embiid. Everyone wants to play the Game 7 and load up there. I'm gonna play Embiid, and it worked out in a big way. 63 fancy points at very low ownership. So. That went well. Paul George went for 51 fancy points, solid. And Morris and Batum, two of my favorite value plays, the wings, both went for over 30 fancy points. Both were really good. Again, Luka was great, went for 76 fancy points, and then Boban, that was a clear value, went for 34 fancy points. So all in all, it was a pretty solid day. Cashing the lower stakes stuff and the higher stakes stuff. Don't even get me started. Missed by like 0.5 points. But yeah, it is what it is. All right. Also, I guess before we end the breakdown, if you guys could, leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't upload videos, you don't live. I will be live tomorrow to break down this 2-game slate, so make sure to check it out. And let's aim for 150 likes in this video. Every single like, guys, helps me out a ton because the more likes this video gets, the more people can see this video. All right, so let's jump into it. The Vegas odds in these two games, Bucks and Nets at 233.5 over under. The Nets are 1.5 point favorites. And Nuggets, Suns at 219.5 over under. The Suns 4.5 point favorites. So on the Milwaukee Bucks side, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 11K. I think he looks like probably the best spend up. If you're spending all the way up, he played 35 minutes last game. He lost about 3 minutes because of the blowout. It's just, again, great matchup. He might have to play more. Like Budenholzer might have to play his guys a little bit more here. All that being said, fast-paced game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, like the matchup a lot. I think he looks like one of the best, in my opinion, my favorite spend up on the slate. Now, Chris Middleton versus Jrue Holiday. Both guys firmly in play. I still think I give a slight edge to Jrue, and the reason being is the assist, right? He's been handling the ball a lot more in the playoffs, 15, 12, 9, 6 assists, as opposed to Middleton, who... Yes, he can still do some of the peripherals, obviously the rebounds, but at times he can be a little bit more reliant on the scoring. So, not obviously he's not scoring dependent by any means, but I just think I give the slight edge, smallest of edges to Jrue Holiday. Plus, he is a little bit cheaper too. So, both Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton are definitely viable here. Both should play 35 plus minutes in an up-tempo game, and I think all three of the Milwaukee Big Three are in play. I like them all. Now, Brook Lopez at 4.9. I think we get around 30 minutes from him. Back-to-back pretty solid games from Brook Lopez. 38, 26 fancy points. We know he's a good, good shooter, can knock down some threes. Not the best rebounder, but he's going to be one of the bigger guys in the court for sure. So can definitely fall into some rebounds. And he's, again, below 5K. And this is an up-tempo game. So you guys I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I like a lot of players in this game. I think this is a game you want to definitely have more exposure to than the late game. So with all that being said, I think Brook Lopez is a pretty safe value play in the board. Below 5K, 30 minutes. Yeah, I like him. Bryn Forbes, definitely the riskier option, right? He is super reliant in scoring. He finally came back down to earth and didn't shoot lights out and went for, again, single-digit fantasy points. So that is a risk with Bryn Forbes. I think we get somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes from him. Now, is he out of play? No, because he can still go for 25, 30 fantasy points if he's knocking down his threes, but that's all he does. So when he has a bad shooting game like he did last game, the floor is super, super low on him. Now, Bobby Portis, I kind of like at 3.9, right? We know his role. His role's not changing in the playoffs. It's 15 to 20 minutes on the bench, a good point per minute guy, right? He's a high-usage guy when he's out there, and the minutes are not changing. They're not fluctuating. So we know what Bobby Portis' role is, and he's below 4K. I think that, all that being said, I think Bobby Portis makes for a pretty good value play. Yeah, I like him. Pat Connaughton, 3.5, so he actually came off the bench last game, played 20 minutes. I'm expecting about the same. A lower usage guy. Is he completely out of play? No, but definitely more of a contrarian value play. And finally, PJ Tucker at 3.2, I think starts again and probably plays somewhere around 25 to 30 minutes. Now with PJ Tucker, he's a very, very low usage guy, but they need him out there for defense. He can knock down a couple, corner threes and maybe fall into some rebounds, and that's kind of what you're looking for PJ Tucker. So, I think he's obviously in play because he'll play big minutes. But don't expect a massive game from Tucker. Like, don't expect 30 fantasy points from him. But again, what I am expecting is probably around 30 minutes and probably somewhere around 15-ish fantasy points, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I think that's a fair guess for PJ Tucker. Now, Jeff Teague did play a little bit. He played 14 minutes on the bench. It's nothing more than a dart throw in large field tournaments. Nothing that I'm going to really get to for my one lineup. Moving on to the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, James Harden, unfortunate for the Nets that he is still out. I think he'll be out for a little bit because hamstring injuries usually take a while to heal. So with that being said, now that makes KD and Kyrie look really, really good, right? Because now this offense is just these two guys, more condensed, right? Kevin Durant should play about 40 minutes, has a pretty high floor. I think he looks really good at the top, and I really like Kyrie Irving now. And the reason being is now he's going to handle the point guard a lot more, right? He had 8 assists last game, so he's going to have the ball in his hands way, way more. He played 45 minutes, too. 40, that is right? 45 minutes? So did he just, not come out that game besides, that's crazy. Kyrie literally, barely left the court. So, yeah, I think Kyrie Irving looks like a really good play. I mean, again, you guys know I'm very, very high in this game. KD, Kyrie, both look good to me. Joe Harris, I'm just not paying $6K for Joe Harris, right? Can he pay off this price point? Yes, but he has to have a really, really good shooting game. So, no, I am not super excited about the price on Joe Harris. Now, with Blake Griffin at 4.1K, it's not necessarily chasing here. And the reason is I am not expecting 46 fantasy points from Blake Griffin. That was absurd. He just turned back the clock and looked like a different player. I have not seen that from Blake Griffin all year long. Just really out of nowhere. 46 fantasy points. He looked great. The reason I say this is not chasing, if you go back to Blake Griffin, is because of the minutes. He played 35 minutes after hovering around, in the 15 to 20 minute range against Boston. So, will we get 35 again? Maybe not. But I think he gets somewhat close to that. And if he gets, maybe instead of 35, 30 minutes, that is still 4.1K is too cheap for Blake Griffin. So, all of that being said, I think Blake Griffin makes for a really good value play. He's going to be popular, but I think it's for good reason. Bruce Brown at 3.8, I think, comes out the bench and plays somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes. Again, a fair value, kind of a do-it-all guy, for sure, playable. And then another clear value play, I think, Mike James. So this was kind of shocking because Tyler Johnson played the backup point last series, and then it was Mike James game 1. So, and Mike James is a much better point per minute guy. Again, he's a good offensive player, a good scorer. He played 30 minutes. 30 minutes for a guy basing min price. Will we get 30 minutes again? I'm not convinced we will, but I think we get, again, like Blake Griffin, somewhat close to that. So, yeah, I really like Mike James here for value at 3.3K. And finally, Nick Claxton, I think, comes off the bench and plays around 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, a decent point per minute guy. In the larger field stuff, he's viable, but not something I'm super, super confident. Again, Jeff Green's still out. DeAndre Jordan, they did hint at him playing this series, but he got no minutes last game. Could he play this game? Maybe. Again, it's not something I want to take a shot on, though. I definitely don't want to take a DNP. And then, yeah, Tyler Johnson, he played the 1 minute in garbage time. That was it, because he was the guy playing more of the backup point guard the last series. So I'm thinking we get similar run of it's just like Mike James, Bruce Brown. So yeah, I don't really think DeAndre Jordan or Tyler Johnson play much in this game. All right, so let's move on to Denver and Phoenix. Denver, Nikola Jokic at 10.8K. My issue with Nikola Jokic is, number one, obviously the matchup is not the best. Number two, look at the other stars in the slate. We have Giannis against the Nets. We have KD and Kyrie with no Harden. I have a hard time prioritizing Jokic at 10.8K over those guys. Now, does that mean Jokic can't outscore them? No, he can definitely outscore them. I just think right now, Jokic is actually a little bit more contrarian. I would prefer those other spend-ups. Well, Michael Porter Jr., this guy has been so frustrating in the playoffs, man. He was just terrible to start, and then back-to-back really good games, 51 and 42 fantasy points. He had, it was something like 20 real-life points in the first quarter, and then he barely did anything the rest of the way. I just don't know what to make of it. He's a good offensive player. I think we get about 35 minutes from him. We've seen the floor, though, from MPJ. And if he starts off cold, like he did early in the series, he'll kind of defer. That one game, he shot 3 times. 3 times. So I again, I don't know what to make of Michael Porter Jr. right now. I like the price. I do like the price at 7-1. I think he plays about 35 minutes. The issue is I don't love the matchup. Plus, he's been very inconsistent. So all that being said, I think more of a tournament play right now for MPJ. Campazzo at 5.8K. It's just the same thing as I've been saying with Campazzo is I would rather get to the cheaper guards in this team. So he actually did play pretty well that last game, but he got in foul trouble. Again, more of a contrarian play at that price. Monte Morris is the guy, my favorite guard player in Denver. I think we get about 30 minutes from him, and he's been playing really well off the bench. 43, 47 fantasy points, been lighting it up. I think we get similar run from him, and he's shooting guard eligible too, which is nice. So I do like Monte Morris a good amount. I think Aaron Gordon's solid too. The minutes have been going up on him, 39, 33 minutes last two games. That's really good to see for Aaron. Well, obviously, I guess that game was the double overtime game, but 33 minutes in non-overtime is good. I think we get around 30 to 35 minutes. So all that with that said, I think he is a pretty fair option. Not someone I'm going to go out of my way to play, but definitely a decent filler. And then JaMychal Green, 3.6K. He's been playing about 20 minutes off the bench. And he's been playing pretty well, too. So I think he's a fair value. I think we get similar minutes, about 20. Millsap, if you want to differentiate yourself in tournaments, he should play somewhere around 12 to 14 minutes, more the backup 5. He's not really going to play any more unless something happens to Jokic, like early foul trouble. And that's really it for the Nuggets. Let's finish up with the Phoenix Suns. And Devin Booker just went crazy that last game. But literally no ownership. Like, no one played him that last game, tuning him for 71 fantasy points. So 48 and 71 last couple games for Booker. He's been lighting it up. I think he's a good tournament play. I still don't think he's a must. Again, it does have a somewhat low floor. He had 33, 31, and 34 previous games in about 40 minutes. That's not great for a guy at 8.5K, obviously, right? So when Chris Paul is out there, the peripheral stats aren't as high in Booker. But when Chris Paul's on the bench, Booker can handle the ball more. He can do some more of the peripheral stats. So, I guess if you think Chris Paul is still going to be pretty bothered by that shoulder and they're going to limit his minutes, then that is a bigger boost to a guy like Devin Booker. Now, DeAndre Ayton started the series on fire and has really come back down to earth. 19 and only 13 fantasy points at last game. Yuck. The issue I have with did I say DeAndre Jordan? DeAndre Ayton. The issue I have with DeAndre Ayton is the offense doesn't run through him at all. Like, you watch that game, the only way he really gets buckets is when Chris Paul drives to the hole and throws it up to DeAndre Ayton, or again when Devin Booker drives and feeds Ayton. There's no post up to DeAndre Ayton, and the offense doesn't really run through him a ton, which worries me. Number one. Number two, he's gonna have to defend Jokic, and I do not like targeting centers against Jokic. We saw the headache of Nurkic last series, right? Of him just being in foul trouble every single game. A little bit worried about that for a guy like DeAndre Ayton. So with all that being said, I think he's a pretty risky play. Chris Paul, I'll say this again. If I knew he was going to play full minutes and fully healthy, this is way too cheap. The issue is they've been taking it easy in his minutes. He really hasn't been playing a ton. The most he played was 32 last series. That shoulder's still bothering him. It's a little bit... Again, if I knew he was going to play 36 minutes tomorrow and no limitations, he's all good, he would be a lock, right? 6'5" is way too cheap. It's just how much does he play? One. Number two, does that shoulder hold up? So I'm just a little bit torn with Chris Paul because it all comes down to that shoulder. It does. So, again, if he plays his normal minutes and is good to go, that is way, way too cheap for Chris Paul. Now, if you think he continues to be somewhat limited, then Cam Payne, I think, is a decent tournament play. Besides that last game, he's been playing really well off the bench. So, yeah, don't mind Payne for GPPs. Jay Crowder and Bridges, both should play some decent minutes. I think I slightly prefer Jay Crowder to Bridges. I played him so many times this series. The two times I didn't, 39 and 36 fantasy points. Is that not DFS in a nutshell? I literally played him every other slate. But, yeah, I think we get about 35 minutes from Crowder. Again, he's a good scorer, good three-point shooter, can do some of the peripheral stats. So, Crowder, I think, a fair play. Mikal Bridges at 4.8, more out there for his defense. He's still playable, a guy that can get some blocks and steals, but has really taken a backseat offensively so far in the playoffs. But yeah, both Crowder and Bridges I think are playable because of the minutes. And then Cam Johnson is someone that I think you can use for some salary relief. I think we get about 20 minutes off the bench from him. A decent offensive score, and that's kind of it for the Suns. So that is going to do it for the video today, guys. If you haven't enjoyed the content so far, I would really appreciate if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't upload videos you don't go live. Again, I will be doing YouTube live stream tomorrow. Make sure to check it out. And thanks again, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you all tomorrow in the live stream.